Welcome to Talk Treatises.
It's good to be here.
Today we're doing something a little different. Usually you'll find us parsing through these dense logical structures of, the Western rationalist canon.
Kant, Hume, the usual suspects.
Exactly. The people who want to map the world with a ruler and a compass. But today, we're stepping off that map entirely.
We're going into the fog.
We're walking into the dimly lit hallways of the esoteric. We're cracking open a book that has been, it's been sitting on the nightstands of occultists, heavy metal musicians, and just, curious seekers for over a century now. We are doing a detailed examination of the Kybalion.
A fascinating and, frankly, a very strange choice for a deep dive. It's a text that makes some incredibly bold claims. It presents itself as a master key.
Right, a master key.
It promises to unlock the doors of the Temple of Mystery, to reconcile all these different bits and pieces of occult knowledge that might seem contradictory or fragmented to an outsider.
Which is an unbelievably ambitious claim for this little book that was published in Chicago, of all places, in 1912.
It really is. And that's, I think, the first thing we have to get into, the provenance. Where did this thing actually come from?
Yeah, let's talk about that. The book says it's a distillation of ancient Hermetic wisdom from Egypt and Greece, passed down from lip to ear for thousands of years. It's written by 3 anonymous authors.
The 3 initiates.
That's them. So before we even get into the mystery of who really wrote it, or whether it's a modern forgery or a genuine transmission, let's talk about the figure at the very center of this whole tradition, Hermes Trismegistus. Who or what was this?
The thrice great. You really can't overstate his importance. Hermes Trismegistus is the central sun around which the entire solar system of Western esotericism revolves.
So not a minor figure.
Not at all. In the ancient world, specifically in that melting pot of Hellenistic Egypt, you had this incredible blending, a syncretism of 2 major deities. You had the Greek god Hermes.
The messenger god. The trickster.
The messenger, the trickster, the god of language, commerce, magic, all of that. And on the other side, you had the Egyptian god Thoth.
The ibis-headed figure you see in all the hieroglyphs.
Precisely. Thoth was the scribe of the gods, the measurer of time, the judge of the dead, and crucially, the inventor of writing. The ancients looked at these 2 figures, this Greek speedster and this Egyptian sage, and they didn't see 2 different gods.
They saw the same energy.
The same archetype. So they merged them into this one figure, Hermes Trismegistus. He becomes the legendary father of astrology, the father of alchemy, and the father of all occult wisdom.
And legend goes even further. He's said to have been a contemporary of Abraham, maybe even his teacher.
Which is a huge claim because it gives him this incredible biblical gravitas, doesn't it? It places him right there at the foundation of everything.
But also completely outside of the established traditions.
Exactly. He's at the root of the monotheistic tradition, yet he's not part of it. And the term Hermetic itself, it comes from him. We use it today to mean sealed tight, hermetically sealed container.
Right.
But its original meaning was secret, sealed wisdom. This was knowledge that was deliberately kept from the masses.
And this is a theme that runs through the whole text, and honestly, to a modern ear, it can sound a little elitist. The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding.
It can, yes. It absolutely can sound elitist. But the argument the Hermeticists would make is that it's pragmatic. It's not about hoarding power.
So what's the logic?
The logic is that truth isn't for everyone at every stage of their development. It's only for those who are genuinely ready to receive it. If you try to force these high-level philosophical or spiritual truth tools that can literally reshape reality onto a population that's obsessed with the material or the base or is deeply superstitious,
you don't enlighten them.
You don't enlighten them. You get trampled. The text has this phrase about casting pearls before swine.
Or historically, you get crucified.
Or you get crucified. The text makes that point specifically. It references the historical persecution of the wise, the Gnostics, the philosophers. The Hermetic tradition survived because it went underground.
After Constantine.
Exactly. When the early Christian church started to solidify its power and suppress all pagan learning, burning the great libraries, closing the temples, this wisdom didn't just vanish. It went into the shadows. It was passed down through secret societies, through oral traditions. It hid in plain sight inside the symbolism of alchemy and astrology.
So the Kybalion presents itself as the moment where these oral teachings finally surface again in 1912. It's not trying to start a new religion. It's not a cult document in the sense of follow our leader or donate to our cause.
Not at all. It says very explicitly, we are giving you a master key. The whole idea is that if you can just understand these core principles, you can unlock the inner meaning of any religion or any philosophy.
That's the mission statement.
That's the mission. It argues that the universe isn't some random collection of matter floating in a void. It's a coherent structure, and it's governed by laws. 7 of them. 7 immutable laws.
The core argument, the one-sentence thesis of the entire work, is that the universe is mental in nature.
Mental, that's the heavy word. That's the one you have to grapple with.
And the thesis is that if you understand these 7 Hermetic principles, an individual can actually master the mental nature of the universe. They can stop being an effect, a thing that events happen to, and they can start being a cause.
They can transmute their own state of being from passive to active, from a pawn to a player.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this is where it gets really, really interesting. We are not just talking about positive thinking here. This isn't the secret. This isn't just making manifestation boards necessarily.
No, this is much deeper. This purports to be the mechanics of reality, the physics of consciousness.
So the book lays out 7 principles, 7 laws that run the entire show.
And they are mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender.
It sounds like a syllabus for a physics class taught by a wizard.
In a way, that's exactly what it is. The book calls it mental alchemy. The alchemists of the Middle Ages, we think of them as trying to turn lead into gold.
Right, guys in basements with bubbling beakers.
And sure, some of them were certainly doing that. But the true Hermetic alchemists were trying to turn the lead of the human mind, things like fear, sloth, ignorance, into the gold of mastery and enlightenment. These 7 principles are the formula for that transmutation.
Let's dive into the first one then, the big one, the one that underpins everything else. Principle number 1, mentalism. The all is mind.
This is the absolute foundation. If you don't grasp this, or if you just outright reject it, the rest of the book is going to sound like nonsense.
So what does it mean?
The principle states that the substantial reality underlying the entire universe, everything you see, touch, feel, and could ever measure, is spirit. But spirit is defined here in a very specific way. It's an unknowable, infinite, living mind.
Okay, so the universe isn't a physical box that contains individual minds.
No.
The universe is a mental thing contained within mind.
Correct. The universe is a mental creation of a being. The text calls the all. It's happening inside the all's consciousness.
The analogy the text uses is actually really helpful here, because otherwise this gets very abstract very, very quickly. It talks about a writer.
Yeah.
Specifically, it brings up Shakespeare and Hamlet.
Yes. This analogy is crucial for understanding the relationship between God or the all and us. Imagine Shakespeare creating the world of Hamlet. Hamlet, the castle of Elsinore, the ghost, Ophelia, they all exist, don't they? They have form, they have a story, they have a reality inside the play.
Of course.
But where do they actually exist?
In Shakespeare's mind.
Exactly. They are mental images. They are thoughts held in the mind of the author. Now, here's the really important nuance. Is Hamlet identical to Shakespeare?
No, obviously not. One's a moody Danish prince, the other's an Elizabethan playwright.
Right. But is Hamlet separate from Shakespeare? Could Hamlet exist if Shakespeare weren't thinking him into being?
No. If Shakespeare stops thinking the play just vanishes.
That is the relationship the text proposes between the universe and the all. We are all characters in the mind of the infinite. We exist in him or it, but we are not identical to it.
That distinction feels really important. It avoids that kind of simple pantheism where people just say, I am God.
It does. The Kybalion is very clear. No, you are in the mind of God. You are a thought of God, a very real thought, but a thought nonetheless.
Okay, but this leads directly to what the text calls the divine paradox. And I want to push on this because it feels like a bit of a philosophical trapdoor.
It creates a necessary duality. From the absolute point of view, from the perspective of the all itself, the entire universe is an illusion. It's a dream. A phantasmagoria. It has no permanent, ultimate reality. It changes, it fades, it dies. Only the all is truly real.
But, and this is a huge but, if I walk outside right now and get hit by a bus, that bus is going to feel pretty damn real.
It will feel very real.
I'll break my leg, the pain is real. If I'm starving, the hunger is real. It feels incredibly dismissive to just wave your hand and say, oh, it's all just a dream.
And that is the relative point of view. And the text is very, very stern about this. It warns against what it calls half-wisdom.
Half-wisdom.
Yes. There are people who get a little glimpse of this truth, that the world is an illusion, and they try to walk around ignoring the laws of nature. They say, Matter isn't real, pain isn't real, that bus isn't real, and they end up, as the text says, broken against the rocks.
Right. If you're Hamlet, you can't just ignore the poisoned sword of Laertes because, Shakespeare's dreaming it all up. Within the rules of the play, that sword is sharp and that poison is lethal.
Precisely. To us, to finite beings living within this mental creation, the universe, its matter, its energy, its laws, they're all very real. And we absolutely must treat them as real. True wisdom isn't denying the lower laws. It's using higher laws to overcome them.
What does that mean, practically?
It means you don't stop the bus by closing your eyes and chanting, "It's all mind." You stop the bus, or you avoid it, by using the laws of the physical plane, like your brakes. Or perhaps by using higher mental laws to have foreseen the danger and changed your trajectory long before the bus even appeared. The text says, "The wise use law against laws, the higher against the lower, and by the art of alchemy transmute that which is undesirable into that which is worthy."
So we're living in a mental universe. That's the container, the fundamental law. So how do we navigate it? What's the map? That brings us to principle number 2, correspondence.
As above, so below. As below, so above.
I feel like everyone has heard this phrase, even if they have no idea where it comes from. It's on t-shirts, it's in movies, it's everywhere. But in this specific context, what is it actually saying?
It's the most famous of all the Hermetic axioms, and it states that there is a fundamental harmony, a deep agreement between the phenomena of the various planes of existence, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual.
So why does that matter? Why is that a useful piece of information?
Because it allows you to reason from the known to the unknown. It's a key. If you can understand how a single atom works, a central nucleus with electrons revolving around it, you can begin to understand how a solar system works.
A microcosm and a macrocosm.
Exactly. If you understand the laws that govern the life of a single cell, you can extrapolate the laws that govern the life of a human being, or a planet, or even an archangel.
It's like the geometry of existence. If you know the angle of a shadow and the length of a stick, you can measure the height of a pyramid without ever climbing it.
That's a perfect analogy. It connects the physical plane, the mental plane, and the spiritual plane. Now, the text is very clear that these planes are not places. You don't get in a rocket ship and fly to the mental plane.
So what are they?
They're degrees of vibration, states of being. The book actually calls them the fourth dimension, which is interesting for 1912.
And it breaks these planes down. The physical plane isn't just rocks and water.
No, it's a spectrum. It runs from the densest forms of matter solids, liquids up through gases, and then into something it calls ethereal substance.
Oh, what's that?
It's described as the connecting link between matter and energy. It's a substance so fine, so tenuous, that it's on the very edge of the material. From there, the plane continues up through highly organized forms of energy like heat, light, and electricity.
And then you get to the mental plane, and the text gets very specific about a hierarchy here. It talks about a mineral mind.
Yes, a ladder of consciousness. The mineral mind is basically the atomic attraction and repulsion that happens on a chemical level. It's the likes and dislikes of atoms.
Then plant mind.
Which adds a layer of growth, of unconscious striving towards sunlight and water. Then the animal mind, which brings in instinct, emotion, basic will. And then finally you get to the human mind, which adds reason, introspection, self-awareness.
And it says that most of humanity is currently in the 4th subdivision of the human mind, evolving towards the 5th.
Right, but it doesn't stop there. This is the as above part of the axiom. The text claims there are beings on the spiritual plane. It uses words like angels, archangels, gods, whose intelligence transcends ours as much as ours transcends the mind of an earthworm.
But even they aren't the all.
No. And because of the principle of correspondence, we can know certain things about them. We know they are still mortal. They are still creations within the mind of the all. They were just much, much higher up the ladder than we are.
So we have a mental universe, which is structured by correspondence. But clearly, things within this universe are different. A rock is different from a thought, which is different from a feeling. What distinguishes them? That leads us to principle number 3, vibration.
Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates.
This is one of those principles that sounds surprisingly modern. It sounds like something straight out of quantum physics.
It does. And remember, this text was published in 1912, right when quantum mechanics and the new atomic theories were just being born. But the Hermetic claim is that this is ancient knowledge, not a new discovery.
So the idea is that the only difference between matter, energy, mind, and spirit is simply the rate of vibration.
That's it. Imagine a vast scale, a spectrum. At the very bottom, at the lowest pole, you have gross matter, a rock. Its vibration is so slow, so dense, that to our senses it appears to be completely at rest.
And at the other end?
At the very top, at the highest pole, you have spirit, the all. Its vibration is so incredibly rapid, so infinitely fast, that it also appears to be at rest.
Like a spinning wheel.
Exactly like a spinning top that's moving so fast it looks like it's standing perfectly still. And everything else in existence, every thought, every emotion, every object is somewhere in between those two poles.
The text uses a really beautiful, detailed analogy to explain this spectrum, the revolving wheel. I think it's worth walking through that visually.
I agree. It's a great way to grasp it.
Okay, so let's do that. Imagine a wheel or a top. You give a slow spin. You can see the spokes clearly. It makes no sound.
Right. Now spin it faster. As the speed increases, it starts to emit a sound, a low, deep hum.
And faster still?
The note rises in pitch. It goes higher and higher and higher until, at a certain speed, the sound disappears. It becomes silent to the human ear because the frequency is just too high for us to register.
So it's moved from the realm of sound into silence. But it's still vibrating.
It's vibrating faster than ever. And now, as you continue to increase the speed, it starts to generate a new phenomenon. Heat. It gets warm, then hot.
And if you keep pushing it,
it starts to glow. First, a dull, dark red, then bright red as it gets hotter.
Right.
Then orange, then yellow, then a brilliant, blinding white.
So we move from sound to heat to light.
Keep spinning it. The white light turns blue, then indigo, then violet, and then it goes dark again. It disappears from sight.
Why?
Because it's now spinning so fast that the light waves it's emitting are at a frequency too high for the human eye to see. It's now emitting what the text calls invisible rays, things like X-rays, electricity, magnetism.
And if you could somehow spin it infinitely fast.
The text claims it would resolve back into what it calls ethereal substance, and finally into pure spirit. It would dematerialize completely, returning to the source.
What's so fascinating here is the practical application. This isn't just about atoms and spinning wheels. The text says that mental states themselves are just vibratory rates.
And this leads to a key mechanic in the book, the concept of mental induction. This is absolutely central to how Hermetic magic, for lack of a better word, is supposed to work.
So what is it?
Think about tuning forks. If I strike a tuning fork tuned to the key of C, another C tuning fork across the room will start to vibrate in sympathy. That's physical induction. The Hermeticists argue that emotions and thoughts work in exactly the same way.
So moods are literally contagious physics.
Yes. If you are feeling intense anger, you are vibrating at a very specific rate. You are broadcasting that vibration out into the world. If I am in a passive or receptive state, my mind can pick up that vibration and I will start to feel angry or at least agitated without even knowing why.
We've all felt that, haven't we?
Yeah.
You walk into a room where a couple has just had a terrible fight and you can't see it, you can't hear it, but the air just feels thick, you feel tense immediately.
That is vibrational induction. And the master, according to this text, learns how to consciously control their own vibration. First, so they aren't subject to the random negative inductions of others. And second, so they can intentionally pulse out positive vibrations to change the atmosphere of a room or a situation.
So they become the active tuning fork rather than the passive one that just resonates with whatever's around it.
That's the goal.
Okay, so we have a mental universe structured by correspondence, and it's all energized by vibration. Now we get to the actual structure of the opposites we see everywhere. Principle number 4, polarity. Everything is dual.
Everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites, but here's the crucial catch, the part that changes everything. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree.
This was a genuine aha moment for me when I first read it. The idea that heat and cold are not two different things.
Think about a thermometer. Can you point to the exact mark on that thermometer where heat absolutely stops and cold absolutely begins?
No. Of course not. It's just a sliding scale of temperature.
Exactly. Cold is just a word we use for the absence of heat or less heat. Darkness is just the absence of light. West is entirely relative to where you started your journey east. They aren't separate things. They're two poles of the same thing.
And the text applies this same logic to our emotions, specifically love and hate.
This is the really radical part. It argues that love and hate are the same fundamental mental emotion, just vibrating at different degrees at opposite poles.
Which would explain why people can flip from passionate love to intense hatred so quickly. You don't have to change the thing you're feeling, you just have to slide the polarity of it.
Precisely. You never see love suddenly transmute into, I don't know, the color red, or the concept of east. That's impossible.
Because they're not on the same pole.
They're not in the same class. But you can transmute things of the same class. You can turn fear into courage because they are on the same pole. You can turn sadness into joy. And this, the text says, is the high art of polarization.
So if you're feeling fear, you don't try to attack the fear or destroy it.
No, that just gives it more energy. Instead, you concentrate your mind on the opposite pole, on courage. You consciously raise your vibration. You slide yourself up the scale toward the positive end.
It's like sliding the fader on a mixing board. You don't have to rip out the wiring and rebuild the board. You just push the slider up from the negative to the positive.
A perfect metaphor. And that brings us directly to the movement of these poles, because nothing ever stays put. That's principle number 5, rhythm, the pendulum swing.
Everything flows out and in.
There is a tide-like ebb and flow to absolutely everything. History shows it. The rise and fall of Rome, the boom and bust of economies. Nature shows it. Winter and summer, day and night. And, most importantly for the individual, our moods and mental states show it.
This explains so much about the human condition, doesn't it? We have these days of incredible creative enthusiasm where we feel like we can conquer the entire world, and then almost inevitably, a few days later, we feel a slump. We feel down, unmotivated, and we start to wonder, what is wrong with me?
According to Hermeticism, nothing is wrong with you. You are just subject to the law of rhythm. The pendulum of your mood swung far to the right into the realm of enthusiasm, so it must, by law, swing back to the left into a period of quiet or even depression. And the text says the measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left.
So that's the law of compensation. If you have a huge capacity for joy, you must also have a huge capacity for pain.
Exactly. A rock doesn't suffer much, but it doesn't experience ecstasy either. The greater the potential high, the greater the potential low.
So are we just doomed to this? Are we fated to just swing back and forth forever, happy, sad, confident, insecure? That feels incredibly fatalistic.
It would be, but this is where the text offers a way out. It speaks of the law of neutralization.
Neutralization, how does that work? You just stop the pendulum?
No, that's the key. The masters realize they cannot stop the pendulum. The law is the law. You can't just will it away. But what they can do is escape the effect of the backward swing on their consciousness.
How?
The analogy is that they rise to a higher plane of consciousness. Think of the swimmer analogy the text uses.
The one with the wave.
Yes. If a huge wave is coming at you in the ocean and you just stand there rigidly, it's going to smash you and drag you back to shore. If you try to stop it with your hands, you'll fail. But a skilled swimmer can dive over the wave or let it pass beneath them. The wave still exists, the energy is still there, but they are unaffected by its backward pull.
So the master maintains poise.
They maintain poise. When the mood of depression or lethargy starts to pull on them, they refuse to identify with it. They mentally rise above it and say, I am on the mental plane of my will, not on the lower emotional plane of this feeling. And they let the wave of mood pass underneath them. They refuse to participate in the negative reaction.
It requires a kind of healthy dissociation.
Yeah.
I feel the swing happening, but I'm not the swing.
Correct. It is refusing to be the pendulum and instead becoming the stable point from which the pendulum hangs.
Okay, moving on to principle number 6, cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause.
This one is an absolute killer for the concept of chance.
Right. Chance is merely a name for law, not recognized.
The Hermeticist looks at the universe and sees a seamless, unbroken chain of causation. There is no chaos. There is no such thing as luck. If a die rolls and comes up a 6, that wasn't a random event. It was the precise result of the weight of the die, the force of the throw, the friction of the table, the air currents in the room.
If we knew every single one of those variables, we could predict the outcome 100% of the time.
That's the argument. The text uses the example of a tiny speck of soot floating in front of your eye.
And tracing it back.
Yes, tracing that single speck back through a chimney, to a lump of coal, to the miner who dug it up, to the geological upheavals that turned ancient forests into that coal seam. Every single event is an unbreakable link in an infinite chain.
But doesn't this lead directly to hard determinism? If everything is just a chain of falling dominoes, where is my free will? Am I just a complex robot reacting to my genetics and my environment? This is one of the oldest, thorniest struggles in all of philosophy.
It is. And the text handles this with a lot of nuance, using that concept of planes again. It says that for the vast majority of people, the masses, as it calls them, they are essentially pawns on the chessboard of life.
Pawns.
Yes. They are moved by their heredity, by their environment, by the suggestions of advertisers and politicians and stronger-willed people around them. They think they are free because they're doing what they want, but they have no idea why they want the things they want.
Right. I chose to buy this brand of toothpaste because I like the taste. No, you chose it because you saw a commercial for it 3 times yesterday, and your mother used it when you were a child.
Exactly. You are an effect of countless previous causes. But the text argues the master rises to the higher plane. By understanding these laws, by using polarization and neutralization, they cease to be just an effect. They become movers.
They become causes.
They become a source of causation themselves. Now, they are still subject to the even higher laws. You can't defy gravity or the fundamental nature of the all, but they rule on their own plane of existence. As the text memorably puts it, the wise ones serve on the higher, but rule on the lower.
They play the game of life instead of being played by it.
That's a powerful distinction, isn't it? Being a player versus being a piece on the board. That is the ultimate goal of all this mental training.
And that brings us to the final principle, number 7, gender. Gender is in everything.
And we have to clarify this immediately, especially for a modern audience. This is not about physical sex. Physical sex, the text says, is merely the organic manifestation of a much deeper universal principle of gender on the physical plane.
So it's more like the concept of yin and yang.
Very similar. It's about a universal duality of generative principles. It operates on every plane, from atoms to minds to spirits.
Okay, so how does it work on, say, the level of atoms or in our own minds?
On the physical level, the text talks about the atom being formed by the interaction of masculine and feminine corpuscles. The masculine energy is described as directing, projecting, willing, initiating. The feminine energy is creative, generating, nurturing, receiving.
So the masculine projects the seed or the initial energy, and the feminine receives it, incubates it, and builds the form.
Exactly. And the same process happens in our minds constantly. The text identifies the I consciousness, the part of you that is pure being, that wills and decides and is aware of itself, as the masculine principle.
And the me.
The me consciousness, the part of you that is becoming, that imagines, that feels, that generates thoughts and ideas, is the feminine principle. Your I impregnates your me with a will or an idea, and your me then generates the mental offspring.
This connects right back to the mental induction we were talking about with vibration.
Yes, perfectly. When a charismatic leader or a hypnotist speaks to a crowd, he is projecting a masculine vibratory energy, the will of his I, into the receptive, passive feminine minds, the me consciousness of the audience.
He's planting what the text calls a cuckoo's egg, an idea that isn't originally theirs.
And their minds take that foreign egg, incubate it, and hatch it as their own thought. And suddenly they think, I have this great new idea, or I feel this intense emotion, but it was really implanted from the outside.
That's the mechanism of telepathy, hypnotism, propaganda, marketing, all of it.
All of it. The text claims that the majority of people are polarized in the me, the passive, receptive, feminine aspect of their mind. They are just waiting to be impregnated with ideas from the outside world. The leaders, the influencers, the masters, they actively use the I, the masculine will, to project their own reality.
So the path to mastery isn't about being all masculine or all feminine. It's about balancing them. You need the will of the I to project and direct, but you also need the creative, imaginative power of the me to generate the thoughts and forms.
That's the law of use. Knowledge without expression in action is vain. You can't just hoard this information like a mental miser. You have to act. You have to engage both the masculine and feminine aspects of your own nature to create something new in the world.
So there we have it, the 7 principles. Mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. It really is a complete system, isn't it?
It is a comprehensive framework for understanding why things happen the way they do, and more importantly, how to consciously influence them. It attempts to take the spooky or supernatural element out of the occult and turn it into a kind of spiritual engineering.
Spiritual engineering. I like that a lot.
It demands that you treat your emotions and your thoughts not as magical, unpredictable winds that blow you around, but as forces that are subject to laws. If you feel sad, that is a vibration. You can change the vibration. If you feel stuck, that is a polarity. You can slide the pole. If you feel overwhelmed by life's ups and downs, that is rhythm. You can rise above the swing.
It puts the control panel back in your hands.
It does. It asks you, it challenges you to stop being a pawn.
Now, this brings us to the part of our deep dive where we take these ancient, powerful ideas and we push them. We push them to their absolute breaking point. We want to see if these principles hold water when we toss them into the deep end of the modern philosophical pool. It is time for our thought experiment.
Then our usual disclaimer.
These scenarios are for entertainment and educational purposes only. We're just extrapolating from the text logic. We are not giving advice or predicting the future.
Okay, thought experiment number 1. Let's call this the psychic climate control.
I'm listening.
So we've established that in this framework, mentalism and vibration are real. We've established that mental states can be induced in others, the whole tuning fork principle. And we've established that the masculine will can project into the feminine mass consciousness.
The mechanics are all laid out in the text, yes.
Yeah.
So imagine a city or a nation. Right now, we treat the national mood as this random, almost weather-like phenomenon. Oh, the economy is down, so people are depressed. Oh, we want a war, so people are happy. It's always seen as a reaction.
An effect of external causes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what if we treated it not as weather, but as an engineering problem? Could you build a psychic HVAC system for a society?
You mean a literal machine? Or a social structure?
Let's say a social structure that's amplified by modern technology. Imagine a group of highly trained projectors, people who have mastered the masculine projection of will. They are stationed in a central hub. Their entire job is to hold and broadcast a specific high vibration frequency, let's say courage or innovation.
So they're the master tuning fork for the whole city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe we amplify this broadcast. Maybe we use media, maybe we embed certain sound frequencies in public spaces, maybe we design architecture using that principle of correspondence to constantly reinforce this vibration into the receptive feminine mass consciousness of the population.
What you're talking about is hacking the zeitgeist, making it a deliberate creation.
Yes. Instead of waiting for a financial crisis to cause widespread panic, you just turn on the AC. You neutralize the low-frequency panic vibration by flooding the psychic environment with the calm or resilience frequency. Could you, theoretically, eliminate mass depression or riot behavior on a macro scale?
If the principles laid out in the Kybalion hold true, then theoretically, yes, you could. But you have to consider the implications of the other principles, specifically polarity and rhythm.
The pendulum swing.
The pendulum swing, the law of compensation. If you artificially force the pendulum of a whole society way over to the positive side, extreme calm, extreme happiness, extreme courage, you are building up a massive, massive potential energy for the swing back in the other direction.
The crash would be catastrophic.
Exactly. If you engineered a society that was artificially high vibe all the time, when that system inevitably fails because a projector gets sick or the technology breaks or the natural rhythm simply asserts its power, the crash wouldn't just be a few bad mood days, it would be a psychic catastrophe, a collective dark age.
So the psychic HVAC system might eventually just blow up the entire building.
Or, to maintain it against the natural pull of rhythm, you would need ever-increasing amounts of psychic energy. It would become a totalitarianism of mood, a mandatory joy, where any expression of sadness or fear is seen as a threat to the system.
That is genuinely terrifying.
It is. It reminds me of that warning in the text. The half-wise, recognizing the comparative unreality of the universe, imagine that they may defy its laws. Such are vain and presumptuous fools, and they are broken against the rocks. Trying to engineer away sadness might be the ultimate act of half-wisdom.
Okay, wow. Let's move to thought experiment number 2. I'm calling this one the finite God trap.
Right, this sounds interesting.
So the text clearly states that on the spiritual plane, there are beings, angels, archangels, gods, who are so advanced we can't possibly comprehend them. But it's very clear they are still within the mind of the all. They are creations.
Correct. They are finite, even if their finiteness is on a scale we can't imagine.
Now let's bring that into the modern world. We had this idea of the technological singularity, transhumanism. The goal for some is to merge with machines, increase our intelligence a trillion-fold, create our own simulated universes, and basically become gods.
We want to become the all.
Right. But here is the trap, based on these principles. If the principle of rhythm and the principle of correspondence hold true all the way up the chain, even if we become superintelligences that can create entire simulated universes, we are still just creating a mental image within our own, now larger minds.
And we ourselves would still be subject to the swing of the pendulum.
Yes. So is it possible that the very structure of this mental universe acts as a kind of permanent quarantine that no matter how high you rise, archangel, AI, God, galactic supermind, you never actually cross the unbridgeable gap to become the all.
The Hermetic answer to that would be an unequivocal yes. The text is very specific. The all is infinite, absolute, eternal, and unchangeable. Anything that becomes something, anything that evolves or grows or changes, is by its very definition not the all.
So the transhumanist dream of becoming God is mathematically impossible in this system.
Yeah.
You just become a bigger and bigger and bigger pawn.
You become a master of the lower planes, yes. You become a mover instead of a pawn, but you are still a servant of the highest law. You might rule an entire simulated galaxy, but you are still subject to rhythm. You still have to metaphorically breathe in and breathe out. Your universe will have a beginning and an end.
That's incredibly humbling. It suggests there's a hard ceiling. You can become a god to the ants in your simulation, but you are still just an ant to the all.
And perhaps that's the ultimate safety mechanism of the universe. It prevents any finite part from ever overwhelming the infinite whole.
Wow. So we've gone from the streets of 1912 Chicago to the mind of God and back again. This text, the Kybalion, for all its strangeness, it really does try to tie everything together into one coherent whole.
It's a grand synthesis. It attempts to bridge that ancient gap between the mystic and the rationalist. It suggests that the magic of the ancients wasn't supernatural at all. It was just a higher understanding of psychology and physics.
The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding.
And that's the final challenge the book leaves you with. It doesn't ask you to believe it. It's not a faith-based text. It asks you to understand it, to test the principles in your own life.
If you understood this deep dive, then maybe, for you, the lips have opened. If not, well, as the text itself quotes from Hamlet, perhaps it was just words, words, words.
Keep that pendulum balanced.
Or thank you for joining Talk Treatises.